So I'd like to welcome everybody here to our short filmmakers panel, not for filmmakers who are short, but for filmmakers who make short films. I'm Robert McCaffrey. I'm one of the co-organisers of the Dorking Film Festival. I'd like to welcome our panellists here. Just wonder if you guys might go across and introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about some of the films that you've made. So go ahead.
Okay, well, my name is Fordham. I directed Doug. It was part of the junior selection. It was meant to go in the adult, but I made a bit of a mistake in submission, so I ended up in the junior one. I've worked, that was like pretty much my main film. I did it at graduation for University of Creative Arts. But since then, I haven't really worked on that much. I've been kind of working, sort of saving money to hopefully move to London at some point soon. I've just been writing. The kind of films I would like to make are similar to the themes of Doug, which is about a kid and his imaginary friend. However, I also want to delve into thriller kind of genre, as it's sort of new to me. That's it pretty much.
Excellent. Tom?
I'm Jack.
Jack.
I wrote and directed Cats in the Bag, which is in the adult short film competition. That's I've done sort of 8 shorts, but that's by far my longest one. I've done sort of like 5-minute ones and ones before that. At uni I did a sort of trilogy of films, which actually the first one is what Cats in the Bag is based on, a bit of a longer version of that. And yeah, just sort of working on stuff and working in London.
Right. Are you working as a filmmaker or in film?
I'm working as an editor, but in corporate stuff, most of that creative stuff.
Leah?
Well, I'm not actually a filmmaker. I'm a poet, and I find that film is a brilliant way to get poetry out into the world. So this is my 3rd film with a filmmaker, and I've got 2 more lined up. Just because I find it exciting to put it out into film festivals, but also eventually to put it out on the internet. I like the idea of having a message and then getting it out quite widely, and as a poet that can be a bit limiting. So this film I made with a filmmaker called Ewan Golder, and it was a very interesting collaboration. I suppose I can talk about the collaborative end, really, how you interpret something that's somebody's story, and then how you work together to make it filmic.
Very good. Well, there are a few topics that I'd like to cover, if I may. And the first one is, and it's apposite, I think, quite mainly because Leah's here, and that is the balance that you have to find between the technical side of filmmaking and the storytelling and, if you like, poetical side of telling the story. And how do you guys get it right? Because all 3 of these films were really quite exceptional. How do you go about balancing everything up, getting everything right?
I think no matter what happens, you're going to run into obstacles. I think as filmmakers, we need to make use of what we have. Luckily we were able to make use of the university equipment for Doug, and through several contacts we were able to use we had a good lighting package for it. But I think you're always going to run into problems. We had sort of the university equipment partly was sort of failing on set, but we really had to just sort of literally sometimes you might have to gaffer tape things together and just go for it, but I think I'm happy with the way it turned out, definitely technical-wise.
So, for example, what was the budget for Doug?
We had about 1,800 in total, and mainly that went on location. We were really lucky because the co-producer, Robert Smith, he'd worked with people that ran the school before. I think he went and shot some theatre plays that were there and stuff like that. So they actually let us use the school for free, which was really, really fortunate. But the main thing the money went on in terms of location was the house, because we didn't take into consideration pickups so much. We put in an extra half day when we actually ended up going over schedule by about 2 days, which is really easy to do. You need to make sure you plan properly, But other than that, catering, etc., it all really does add up, and the distribution at the end too.
So catering, is that sandwiches?
Yeah, we made tuna pasta, etc. Just sometimes we ordered pizza on a couple of days as well. So.
Right. How long was your shooting schedule?
The shoot we shot for. We originally planned to shoot for 4 days, but we went over. Like I said, it was about 6 days, 6.5. there's, like I say, you're always going to run into obstacles, issues, and yeah, we did go over schedule, but it was worth it, definitely.
Right, Jack, how do you balance up your storytelling and your technical side?
I definitely think that the technicality can sort of really limit a lot of the time your storytelling, because you come up with an idea but you're unable to pull it off due to not having locations or not having as many actors, and budget's obviously always a problem with that. So sometimes you have to sort of readjust your storytelling to fit something you can pull off technically. But equally, I think it works the other way around. Often, especially when I was starting out and learning, some of my ideas came from wanting to try and achieve something technically, like hadn't done something which is more of like a montage or something shot at night, or all these sort of technical challenges, and coming up with ideas that force you to try the challenges is sometimes a way of helping you to come up with the ideas, I think.
Right.
So,
Well, how long did it take to shoot Cats in the Bag?
Cats in the Bag was just a 2-day shoot, and it was quite quick and fast.
That's funny because it's only 15 minutes long.
Yeah, I know.
What did you do the rest of the time?
Yeah, it's surprising how long it can take up. Like basically tried to shoot. We couldn't shoot chronologically due to actors and stuff. So we basically shot the second half first with the girl who's in the film, all first, and then we shot the main opening scene before. And basically just all different angles. When you have something that's so dialogue intensive as Cats in the Bag is, it's just all the different reverse angles and making sure you've got a good coverage of everything really takes up a lot of time.
Right, and was everything written before you got onto the set, or was there some fudging as you went along?
Chris, who's in the film with me, is one of my writing partners. He didn't write this particularly, but sort of had a first pass, and then as we sort of acted out and rehearsed it, we changed a lot of stuff that was improvised as we rehearsed it, but most of the stuff that's actually in the film was written before, apart from maybe a couple of lines that changed here and there. But the writing process was partly sort of based around our improvisation with each other.
Okay, but mainly if you'd improvised it beforehand, you'd written it down, and then you went through it and it was in. So there was very little actually that arrived in the final film that was just completely off the cuff.
Yeah, because
during the shooting.
We felt that the story had quite a specific path it needed to follow. There are a couple of jokes here and there that you could mess around with, but mainly you needed to make sure you hit the certain points to continue the story.
Right. And Leah, you're how close, if you like, to your poetry, your poem was the film that was finally made? It's a non-linear film in many ways.
Yeah, it's a mixture of my poetry and then me just kind of talking and then using my dad's words, because I did collect his words while he was going through his journey with Alzheimer's. And I suppose because it's a collaboration, we're actually an embodiment of what you're talking about, which is how you get the narrative and how you get the image to actually meet. And there's lots of the film where I think it really, really works. But there are bits that we had to really wrangle about, the two of us. And there's still bits in there that I kind of think, it's not exactly a representation. And that's kind of exciting, because it was the actual process of doing it. It's two kind of artists coming together, both very committed to our different art forms, but how do you actually get them to merge? So Ewan created this amazing space that we shot in, and his idea was the projections and just that montage of amazing images he came up with. But I also felt that I kept wanting to have input, because I wanted to honour my dad, I wanted to honour my words as a poet. And so we did have some good sort of backwards and forwards, and I don't like the apples, and then he still kept the apples in. So it's a very dynamic process. But it's very specific to this film, because the last film I made was with a younger woman filmmaker, and it's much more straightforward. It's much more just following the poem through, and it's kind of clean and sort of encased, whereas this one's just all over the place.
Well, it was like looking at a palimpsest with not just 2 but 3 and 4 layers, and then some of the film footage was coming back to us, and it was chopped up, and we were seeing it again, and sometimes it would be run backwards, and there was smoke and mirrors, and it really was quite an extraordinary experience to see it again. How much of the final visual comes from you, for example, and how much from, if you like, the filmmaker?
It's hard to say really. I mean, I chose a lot of the cine film. It was my dad's cine film, and he was never very good at filming, so it was always out of focus and fast, and kind of works here. But I sort of chose bits that I wanted. I chose photos, and I hate being filmed, and I didn't want it to be a performance to camera. So we came up with a compromise that he would just film me from behind. And a lot of people thought that this was a filmic device and thought it was very clever, but it was just that I can't stand being filmed. So, there were sort of things going on all the time where I would actually say, I can't do that bit. So I suppose it was a negotiation. But at the end of the day, Ewan did the final edit, although I have to say I did sort of say, I want more of this, I want less of this. So I don't know how you talk about that sort of in a film way, but that's how it went.
Because bizarrely, one of my favourite parts of that film was where you are walking along a corridor in a dark coach, you turn right, you walk along the corridor for a little while, go up some steps, open a door, and ascend yet further into a smoky room and gradually vanish. Which is, I don't know why it had quite an effect, but it's very effective in doing whatever it did.
Some people have thought that what I was trying to do was make a film about what Alzheimer's feels like, but I would never do that. I mean, I don't know what was going on for my dad, and I don't know what the experience of Alzheimer's is. So it was never that, but it was trying to communicate something about yearning, something about the multi-layered nature of memory, and the way that memories sort of poke through smoke in a way. And
Interesting. Let's just move it along very slightly. I want to come back to the technical side of things. You guys in particular, is there anything that you would have done differently, looking back on your two films, Cats in the Bag and Doug, looking back on it, what would you have done differently now in hindsight?
A lot.
A lot.
Yeah, I think that's always just the case. Whenever you look back at anything, you're always going to be critical because what you visualise isn't always how it comes out, and when you're creating it at that point, you wish you could go back and change how you shot something, or maybe shot something with more depth, or even work back to the scripting. You feel like, I don't know, writing a comedy could have done a better joke, or could have even taken it in an entirely new direction. I think you can't help but have those doubts about how it is, but it doesn't take away from what the film becomes. It just, you can't help but, I guess, doubt and maybe think about what could be different.
Anything very specific that you would have changed, that you'd like to change?
No, nothing particularly specific. There's just things like story-wise, I felt like it could have gone a different direction where Jess's character was more involved maybe a bit earlier on, and I felt like there could be a more comedic sequence out of that. But
she didn't die.
No, she didn't.
I mean, we missed an opportunity there, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
somehow
maybe the sequel.
Yeah. She comes back in to find the two chaps on the carpet and slips over and joins them for Breaking Bad Series 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Tom, anything that you would have changed?
I mean, I feel like you're never really going to be happy, you know. As you said, there's always sort of, you're going to be critical, there's things that you wish you could have done differently. For me personally, I've come to learn that you should, as a director, you shouldn't be so attached to your vision of how you think the film should play out. That's kind of what, you know, that hit me hard on the day of the shoot, because we did all this rehearsal with the kids. It was the first main film I'd done, especially working with kids as well. People say don't work with kids and animals, you know, but I wanted to be like, you know what, let me try it out, see what it's about. And on the day of the shoot, one of the kids, Chi, who played Charlie, the main character, in a few scenes he kind of almost took what we rehearsed and kind of just threw it out the window and kind of went with something completely new. And on the day I was sort of, I was so shocked by it, I really didn't know how to react. I was kind of, you know, I took him aside, we had this conversation, and I tried to sort of get through to him about it, but he kind of, at that point, he was sort of, this is what I want to do. And it only got to when we looked in post, I realised, wow, you know, this is amazing. You know, it's certainly more in the moment than it would have been. So I think that's definitely what I would have changed. That and having a bigger crew as well. I think when you're a university student, you tend to split roles and do things, try and do everything yourself, you know, and it sort of limited my time to actually be a director.
Right, because you seem to have quite a big crew there from your credits.
Yeah, did you see how many times my name came up?
Yeah, it did.
No, yeah, we do. I mean, we had a crew in total, including post as well. A couple of people added afterwards. we had 14 people, that does sound like a lot of people. You're right, but I think on the day it just I don't know, things can get out of hand very easily, and I think the main thing is just sort of making sure you stick to your role, so you can completely put all of your attention into it.
So I would say, surely one of the roles of the director is to tell the actors to give the lines as you've rehearsed them and get on with their job. But your little chap decided to test you somewhat.
Yeah, I mean it's complicated. It can be difficult, especially with children, as I've learned. The adults wise, they sort of did it, how we rehearsed and that. But what I realised afterwards though is that children really are more in the moment. They really they don't just act. They don't just they really are that person. It's not a character. It's a person. Yeah.
Okay.
I was just going to say, going on from that though, I think when you're working with different people who are have that as a profession or do that full time or know how that works being an actor or anything, you have to sort of equally be able to trust them. It should always be a collaboration. If an actor wants to do it differently, you should take that on board and discuss that, because your vision isn't ever going to be perfect. And same with any part of the career. If the cinematographer thinks you should shoot something differently, you should be open to discussing that. You may come around and be like, no, I want to do it my way, but I think you always have to be open to that sort of collaboration, even on the set.
Okay, do we have any questions from the audience at all? Okay, we're going to move on. What's next for all you guys? What are you working on now?
Well, as I previously mentioned, I'm doing a lot of writing now. I did write Doug as well, so I've just been reading a lot and trying to improve my skills as a writer. I'm currently writing a pilot for a series I'm calling Barflies, and it's basically going to follow different individuals that spend their entire life at this sort of rundown bar. I don't want to give too much away, but that's one thing I'm working on. And then, as I said as well earlier, that I want to delve into kind of thriller genre. Me and my crew have been saying literally since the first year of university that we want to make a zombie film. Now, everyone tells us zombies are dead genre, it's been overkilled. But again, similarly to how my approach was to Doug, I'm thinking, no, I want to try it, So those are the two things I'm working on at the moment.
What could you do differently for zombies?
I mean, there's all different approaches to it. We were thinking of one recently where it takes place in a facility and it's set afterwards, after the outbreak, and then after we really got interested in insighted into it, we realised that's already a series called In the Flesh on BBC Three. So, I think the key to doing it is to try and make it different. Is similar to a series called Walking Dead. Is focusing on the people. If you can come up with a storyline that would work without the backdrop of zombies, then that's going to be good. Original, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, did you guys see Detectorists?
Yeah,
one of my favourite series from last couple of years with Toby Jones and Mackenzie Crook. Fantastic story about love and betrayal and metal detectorists, but it still worked without the detectorists. That was kind of incidental, just like a zombie series could be, without the zombies. What are you working on?
Got a couple of shorts and feature ideas, but just sort of working, like I said, as an editor currently. But it's just finding there's some ideas I have that there's a script I've pretty much finished, but it's just being able to pull it off. That's always what I found difficult, not having funding or having very little money to do stuff. You always want to have bigger films and strive to have more ambition, but then you reach a point where you don't have the actors or the technical ability to pull it off. So I've got a couple of scripts waiting, but nothing I'm actually working towards.
So how do you take that next step?
I don't know, I wish I knew, but I guess I have it there, and I'm always trying to work on my different skills, and so if the opportunity does ever come up to make it. And I think just networking with people, finding more people to help you make the films, because like you said, you just need to find more and more people to help you make films. Making films is an entirely collaborative process.
Okay.
And you just need to, the more people you know that can help you out, the better.
I want to come back to this, but Leah, what are you working on now?
Well, I'm just a crew of one, so I have to promote the films as well as work on them. So I'm kind of promoting Watch, and it sort of that's sometimes a full-time job, just sending it off to film festivals and then sometimes going and presenting it. and the one that has just come out after this is just doing the rounds of international women's film festivals. So that's quite a big part of what I'm doing.
What's that one called?
It's called Count, and it's kind of about everyday sexism, and it's just a long, it's about 3 minutes long, and just different young women and women, my mates basically in Folkestone, women of different ages and different races, just doing the poem to camera. It's a very nice film, and very different to this. And so the big project I'm working on is, I've got this project called Older Women Rock, which is, I did manage to get money for this. It was done really on a shoestring. But yeah, and also just finding filmmakers who work for hardly any money. I feel really bad about that, but you know, that's the way it goes, really.
We seem to be doing it for love, really, I think, in many ways. Just moving into the murky world of finance, if you were to find £5,000 blowing down the street, and coincidentally you had a budget planned out for a new film, would you spend £5,000 on making a film, or would you nip out and buy yourselves a new car?
I'd probably spend £5,000 on making a series of 2-minute films.
How many?
Probably only about 5.
5. Okay.
If you can, you know, blow like £1,000 into a 2-minute film, you know, your production value, sky roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if it's money you didn't have anyway, yeah, spend it on a film, why not? But yeah, there's, like I said, there's a script that if I had the money to make it,
So the question, next question, if you like, is where are you?
Can I just answer?
Oh, you go ahead.
I mean, I'd certainly, I've never spent more than £2,000 on a film, maybe one, sometimes not even 1,000. But I would keep money by to promote it. I can't believe how expensive it is to put it in for film festivals. And the bigger the film festivals, some of them are asking about 50 quid just for you to put the film in. And the first time round, I didn't really budget for that. And so a lot of it's just coming out of my own pocket. This is one of the very few film festivals where you didn't have to...
Yeah, we've got to change that.
Yeah.
That's why we got 950 submissions this year. So one question that I want to ask you is, where do you want to end up?
I mean, I've been thinking about features for a while, but to be honest, I don't really have so much of this big grand plan, you know. I just want to carry on doing what I love doing, and that's it.
Short films?
Just telling stories, you know.
Telling
whether
stories.
it's in short form or feature. I mean, yeah, I'd say I would like to end up doing feature films. But, I mean, you know, like I said, I'm writing a pilot, web series, maybe it will go onto television, I'm not too sure.
Yeah?
sort of long-term, more sensible plan as an editor, just keep sort of working up with that. But I do always have an ambition to make a feature film at some point. I always sort of want to achieve that. I'd love to make a series as well. It's just a point I've sort of forgot about that. I do have a series that I've written. But
just forgot it.
Yeah, sort of been written with Chris who's in the film. We sort of wrote it together. It's a sort of mockumentary series about two people trying to make a film. So sort of self-referential and stuff. So that's brought up quite a lot of our points. That one is quite improvised actually, so very loose structure. But it's just finding the time and the money to sort of do that.
Yeah. Before we go on to Leah, can you not? Would you not say that actually being a feature film director is just going to be a massive headache and a real pain in the backside?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want the experience. I wouldn't really know what that's like until we try it. So yeah, I'd definitely love to give it a go at some point.
So you're working as a professional editor in film at the moment?
No, more corporate sort of situation, but I'd like to become more creative.
Okay. So let me ask you this, do you think that your professional experience now in editing corporate films, do you think that could parlay through into your editing work and your other work?
I think it definitely just improves your skills as an editor. I mean, just working every day on the same job, like I'd say because I edited this before, I was professionally working as an editor, and just workflow and speed, I think, yeah, definitely improves your skills. And I wouldn't say creatively has changed much about how I edit, but definitely just speed and just ability.
Yeah. Leah, do you have a final point where you want to arrive at?
This is going to sound a bit like Miss World saying that she wants world peace, but I really think there's I think film is a really powerful way to make change, and so I'm not even doing it, I think, for love, but I'm doing it because I want to make a difference. I want the film to make a difference, and I came to poetry really late in life. I'm not a crafted poet. I'm doing it sort of as an activism. So this film was about, I really wanted to make a change. I wanted people to be able to talk about being a carer of people with dementia. I want issues to be raised. I want the film to be able to go into training of carers in care homes so they can think about the person that's in front of them. The older women rock. I'd like to make films that got out there, not necessarily on the film circuit, but maybe just on the internet, that would actually be talked about, that would actually make people think about something, would make them feel something, and that's what I want to do with poetry, and that's what I want to do with film. So, yeah, and it's sort of working, but I would like to up it. I'd like it to have much greater effect in the world, really.
Interesting. Now, you've brought up perfectly my next point I was going to ask about. Are you all now in competition with the internet? Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Netflix, Amazon Prime, do these things actually toll the death knell for storytelling on film? And people, for example, in theatres, movie theatres, watching it together, listening to other people's reactions and enjoying it together, or are we going down a road where actually we're just going to watch everything on YouTube, on Netflix, do everything at home, and see these kind of things in a hermetically sealed bubble?
I mean, you can, people post a hell of a lot of their feelings, their thoughts towards films, but yeah, it's not the same as sitting in that theatre room and just feeling it, that sort of... I was talking to a director at Portsmouth Festival. He explained that the feeling he gets is this almost electricity, these flickers of magic off and between people in the audience. You're not going to feel that if you're sitting in your home, This is a film that he created, When you're sitting in your theatre and you see your film and you can see these little people laughing at certain points, etc., you're never going to get that from sitting, at home, looking at your computer, etc.
I think I'm a bit biased because my films would never be seen by anyone if the internet didn't exist. All of my films are only available through the internet simply because of cost or anywhere seeing them. I think it's opened up the ability for so many more films to be seen. But I think exactly on what you said, that's the reason why it won't ever die out. But I think there will always be people who want to go to the cinema. You can watch any film at home online, pirated by someone, and yeah, many people do that. But I think for many people, it will never be beaten just sitting in the cinema watching a film, whatever that is. I think that's a completely different experience.
Well, I was telling David, it's the first time I've seen this film on a big screen, because whenever I've shown it, it's been much smaller. And this is the first film festival that it's going to be shown in. The others are coming on this month and next month. And to see it on a large screen is just something else. I mean, just the colouring and everything, because it feels so different. But on the other hand, I like the idea that, there's this strange film that's on the internet called Older Ladies, which I don't particularly like, but it's had 10 million hits. And I was thinking, if you can get a message out, this is all mind-blowing for me as an older person, but you could get your message out to that many people. And if that's what you're aiming for, I think it's brilliant, actually. I like it very much. But of course, I can't put things onto the internet until I've exhausted all the film festivals, because a lot of film festivals just won't consider you if you're widely available on the internet.
Rob, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
What size screens did you make your films for?
The question is, what size screens did you make your films for?
Screen's much similar to this one, I suppose.
So you were thinking big?
Yeah, I reckon so. I mean, to be honest, that isn't something that I've really overly thought of, but I mean, it was always intended to be seen on a big screen at some point. So.
Mine's just always online. I expect people to just watch it at home on their laptops, or hopefully not their phones.
Phone, laptop,
Hopefully not phones. I mean, that feels like we're in something, and laptop's not great, but I'm aware that that's how most people watch this film. Most of the people who are going to see this film are shared via Facebook or Twitter or just generally the internet, and most people are going to watch that at home. So it's a rare occasion that this is the first time it's been shown on a large screen.
And of course, outrageously, they'll probably be looking at it on a phone or a tablet, but the likelihood is they're not even going to be listening through it through headphones. They might just be coming in through a tinny speaker, which is awful, because I know that the care that you guys take over the sound as well. I was lucky enough to watch the submissions on an iPad with a great pair of headphones, so I heard absolutely everything. Are you fussed, Leah, how people are seeing it, or do you just want as many people to see it as possible?
With this particular film, I think it seems important that it's shown on good quality, because otherwise it just disappears, because there's so much disintegration in the film that sometimes when I've shown it, like in a university, and they've got really crap setup, you can hardly see it. And I mean, it's supposed to be experimental, but not that experimental. You can't. And also the sound, you know, because I got money from the Arts Council years ago to work with the musicians to do the music, and if the sound isn't right, it's really tricky. So having said I want to get it out really widely, this particular film, it really hurts me sometimes when I see it, and it's so grainy you can't really make out what's going on.
We were lucky here with the fantastic projectionist. I think the sound levels were a bit high sometimes, but there we go. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'm just going to ask one final question, then we're going to wrap it up, and that is, do you have any tips for up-and-coming youngsters who are looking to get into filmmaking?
Just do what you love and keep doing it, pretty much. I don't have any long answer for that one. It literally just comes down to, perseverance, and you can't please everyone, and don't take that to heart. Rejection from festivals can be difficult, but you just need to keep going, pretty much.
I think from our submissions, I think the first thing that we looked at is it's got to be technically competent. It can't be incompetent. If it's incompetent, I'm afraid that's a bit of a bar to it going any further. You also have to, generally, you have to try and put it in the right category.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's a good one. You should try that one next time.
Maybe that's a good advice for everyone to...
Any advice?
I'd just say just make stuff. Don't be worried about how it turns out. Like, it may turn out terrible, but you have to produce terrible stuff to produce better stuff. Like, so many of my first films I wouldn't want anyone to ever see, and they're so bad. And even some of my later ones. But like, you just got to keep making it, no matter. Like, if you like, I made this on 50 quid. I made like everything else on £0.
Cats in the bag, £50.
Yeah, that's because everyone worked for free, and I basically bought some sandwiches for everyone and paid for someone's train fare. So just make stuff. That's my thing. Just doesn't matter. Just get some mates together, get a camera, come up with an idea, and shoot it. And your first stuff will be ropey, and it will be badly edited. The sound will be horrible. But by doing it, that's like the best way to learn. There's no better way of learning than simply just going out and making stuff.
And rejection, like you say, I think you've got to get a bit of a thick skin as you go on. Yeah,
and, a lot of people won't like it, a lot of people won't see it, but if you're in it for that, for to be praised in the start and everyone to tell you're amazing, then probably not there for the right reasons.
Leah, any tips?
I suppose it's the same tip really that I'd give to people who come to my poetry workshops, which is write from you. So don't try and do it like, it's often tempting to do it like somebody else or something else that's been successful. But the thing that intrigues me most is where someone's had a vision that's come out of all of everything they are, that they bring everything to it. And I think it just feels different, poetically and filmically. It feels different when somebody has been willing to be very transparent, very kind of, just disclosing, and very specific. I think that works when you kind of get an image or either an image in words or filmically that only you can have put together. That really excites me. And I'd like to see more people who don't normally get access to making films to have that opportunity. Yeah.
It struck me that your film was almost a distillation of your father's essence into 15 or 20 minutes of film. It was quite fascinating in some ways. Do you think you really captured him? Felt like you did?
It's interesting because people have come up and said that they would like to have met him and that he sounded really interesting. But then, of course, I also edited a lot out, and that's the bit you don't get to talk about. So, I mean, all the time you're making editorial decisions, and the performance piece this comes from is 45 minutes long, and it's actually the bits I left out were probably the bits that would have made a really very harrowing film, but it was the more political stuff that I left out, how people with dementia are treated, basically, in the system. So I think it was a representation of my dad. My dad would have gone, "What have you done that for?" He would have been really confused why I would have made a film like that. But for me, it started off as something for me. It was kind of my therapy when I first started writing it, and then it sort of develops into something that's more for public consumption. But I left so much out, and I guess that's always true. It's like you're making decisions every moment about what you're going to keep in. And yeah.
Great. Any last thoughts?
I do actually have a question on your film. Just, did you always want to make it as a film, or did you approach the filmmaker, or did the filmmaker approach you, or how did you pick the filmmaker to make it? Who did you feel responsible to take on that project? What did you think?
Oh, it's a really good question. It started, so it didn't start as a film. I just started, like when my dad first got a diagnosis, I started writing poetry and I had no idea what it was going to be. And then I got money from the Arts Council to do a performance, which I just couldn't face doing time and time again. And so I decided, by then I'd already made a film, and I thought this would be really good if I can distill it. And I moved to Folkestone from London, and Folkestone's like an artist colony, so all you have to do is say to people, "Do you know a filmmaker who doesn't want very much money?" And people say, "Oh, you should talk to so-and-so." And I don't know, it kind of worked. We're so different that when we first met, I think we both got a bit scared and thought, no way. But there was something about our differences that meant there was a friction there and we could work with it. Yeah, and similarly, the young woman I'm working with now, there's just, sometimes you just have to go with who comes up in front of you and then assume that it's going to work. I feel I don't have the luxury of being able to look at loads of people's work and decide who I want to work with. But I think you just go with it, and this film was like nothing I could ever have imagined. It's very different to Ewan's other work. And so, yeah, I think you just have to be open to it, and it was a risk, because I paid him out of my own money before we actually got any funding. And I think it was a really good choice. But no, I mean, I can't be that systematic going looking for people. It's like if someone wants to work with me, that's fine.
Very good. Well, I think if there are no other questions from the audience, I'd like to thank all of our panellists for their excellent contributions. Thank you very much.